Welcome back to the Fade to Freedom Project. I've started recently to do something that makes me very uncomfortable, to spend more time on social media. I'm doing this because I want to engage with others and I want to see what people are saying and thinking, and I want to get my ideas out there and have them tested against other minds. It's the same reason I'm making these videos. During one of my forays on X back in August of this year, I saw a post from the insightful Robert Breedlove, and I was so inspired by it that I've been wanting to write a piece or make a video about it ever since. This is that video. I hope you enjoy it. The post was about what he called the epitome of circular logic. People are bad, so we need a government made up of people. Are bad, so we need a government made up of people. That just hits so hard. So, what's meant by this? What makes this insight impactful? So, what this insight does is it gets to the heart of our thinking way in the United States and in all the developed countries. The baseline justification for why we need the government to manage important things in society is that people are bad. It's the whole James Madison kind of thing. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. But they're not angels. Wouldn't you agree with that? People are selfish, they're ignorant, they're greedy, they're spiteful. They'll take every shortcut that they can. They'll break every standard of social conduct if they think they can get away with it. They can't be trusted. That's why we need the government to manage things so we don't destroy each other. That's the idea. Now here's the other, even more important part of the insight. It highlights how we believe that people will somehow become different, better, when they go to work for the government. That's the idea, that somehow people are going to change when they work for the government instead of privately. We are married to the idea of the public servant. People take oaths of office when they take a government post. They swear to serve the public. We see them as impartial, as wise, just, fair. We see them as outside the system. They're there to keep others in check, kind of like referees. And that idea makes us feel safe, to have something there, a buffer against being at the mercy of the relentless self-interest of your neighbors and all the people out there. Tell me that idea doesn't make you feel a little safe. When it first touches my ears, it does for me. However, the more we observe what's happening, the more that idea ceases to comfort us. The persona of the public servant is a lie. It's only a label. The oaths of office, the speeches about the common good, the propaganda about how the government represents the people, they all make a nice story. But in reality, this story just amounts to a distraction. It's a distraction from the question, what are people incentivized to do? We fall for a trap when we believe the conventional narrative. We believe that somehow people change when they're in certain institutions, that somehow they change their nature in certain situations. No, that's false. The people stay exactly the same. Human nature never changes. Only the incentive structure changes when we change around our social institutions, when we get the government involved in an area of society. All people have some capacity for selfishness, greed, deceitfulness, and pettiness. Everybody's shit stinks. And all people have some capacity for selflessness, tolerance, hard work, decency, compassion. There's a hero in every person, just like Aunt May told Peter Parker. You probably have a side of yourself that wants to scroll on social media for 4 hours today. There's probably also a side of you that wants to do the laundry and make a healthy dinner tonight and think about your budget a little bit. It's basically the same for me. The question is, what side of us is our society going to bring out? What desires and motivations is our society going to play to? What's our system going to incentivize? That's the way I encourage you to look at government and society. Look past the oaths, the stories, the propaganda, what you learned in your textbooks, which is just a synonym for propaganda, and think about what government action does to the incentives in society. So, what happens when you ask government to manage society? Here's where I'm going to insert my never ending refrain. The most important thing you will ever hear about government in your whole entire life. Government is the agency of coercion and violence. All government action is violence. Political power is the power to employ violence and coercion, to direct the police force, to use the law. That's what it means. The government is the agency of physical force. Physical force is what I call a meta incentive. Wherever it's introduced into human relationships, it tends to override and transform the other acting incentives. A law is made, and anyone who breaks this law will be thrown into a concrete and metal cell and told when they're allowed to eat and sleep, or they'll have a large portion of their wealth forcibly taken from them. No one person or group in society can match the total physical force at the government's disposal. You cannot defeat it in a competition of force. We clearly understand this. You can't fight the law and win. The government has the most assault rifles, so we follow the laws. When government action is employed in any area of society, it becomes an unavoidable factor that all market participants have to consider in their decisions. And this has a profound, actually an unfathomable effect on the incentive structure. Let's consider an example together. Farming. Imagine the market for farm products before any government involvement. The challenge for farmers is understanding what people want and need the most and meeting those needs with the most efficiency and effectiveness. The farmers who produce the most efficiently and manage risk the best are going to be the most successful in this voluntary market. The focus is on optimizing resources and adapting in real time to what the market needs, being the best farmer possible. Farmers who employ bad practices, make bad decisions, or acquire a reputation for dishonesty are going to fail. What happens when the government passes a farming subsidy into law? The idea behind any farming subsidy is that farming is of great importance to the society. It is, of course, and that by giving farmers more resources to expend, they will become more productive, employ better methods, and provide more and better products. But what actually happens? Well, first, citizens have to be taxed in order to provide the subsidy to farming operations. The money taken from them can be seen as a choice taken away. Instead of whatever they would have spent that money on, they will now have subsidized farming. Maybe some of that money would have found its way to the farmers anyway, maybe not. Keep in mind that the farmers are among the people who are taxed in the first place. As soon as the law is passed, any farmers that are able to will immediately move to meet the requirements to get the subsidy. If you can get that free money, you're going to go for it. How can you possibly compete otherwise if you're all being taxed to provide it and your competitors are getting it? If everyone else is getting it, you have to get it in order to compete. The greater the government subsidy, the greater the government regulation over the enterprise and industry. More government money equals more government requirements. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Before you know it, you have an entire U.S. Department of Agriculture, like we have now. It quickly becomes more important to meet the arbitrarily defined requirements to get the subsidy than to be creative and analyze the market. Producers no longer answer to the society at large through market forces, but to the rules of a small handful of bureaucrats. Once the subsidy starts, the farmers will act to make sure that it never stops. They'll lobby, they'll make it a ballot issue, they'll justify its existence however they can. They get used to it and they come to account for it in their business. Now that this subsidy is up and running, the justification can be made for subsidies in just about any area. So, what we thought we would get, better farming methods and better products for everyone. What we incentivized and got, an industry dependent on money forcefully expropriated from citizens, no longer answering to the market at large, but to the rules of a small group, and a road paved for any other industry to become exactly the same way. We also have a government that has dramatically increased its importance and power in society, and we have zero real improvement in farming because the free market is already an optimized incentive structure. If you can gain the backing of the police force in securing your livelihood, such as by getting a subsidy, that's a surer bet than relying on your ability to compete in the market. No matter how smart you are, there's never a guarantee of success in the market. That's why most people don't go into business. That's why most businesses fail. But no one can resist the police force. And if you can just get that system of coercion to work for you, if you can just get money from those government programs, you've got it made. The dynamic works the same in all areas of life, whether it's car manufacturing, electronics manufacturing, farming, healthcare, education, protecting the environment. The dynamic is the same. I hear all the time how greed is the greatest problem in the world. If people just weren't so greedy, society would be so much better. Greed is the number one reason cited by almost every person that I've talked to when they say we need government programs. I even felt that way at one point. Like I said before, I agree that pretty much every person has the capacity to be opportunistic, greedy, and selfish. But think about what we're saying. People are bad and greedy, so we're going to give some of them arbitrary power over everyone else. These people are just people, not really different than the average guy or girl. They're the same exact people that they were before they joined the government. Now they just have power over others. They're going to act in the same ways you don't want them to act privately, only they'll have an unlimited arbitrary power to inflict inconvenience on you. They'll be just as selfish, only with the police force to back up whatever they want to do. Many people are attracted to having this kind of power. There's not a shortage of political candidates right now. And it's not just the people in government. The incentives change for everybody. People are greedy and selfish. So let's forcefully expropriate 50% of all the wealth that's produced in society and then make access to that pot dependent on your ability to influence politicians and demonstrate compliance with government rules. Those most able to do this will be protected from the need to be productive. What do you think people are going to do? If they can influence it, if they can get something out of that, they're going to go for it. People aren't so stupid. When the government is giving handouts and exemptions and favors, and people are already being taxed immensely for all of this, most of them are going to go for it. And you see it. There's no shortage of people lining up to receive government subsidies and benefits and lobby for political favors. Block my competitor, mandate my products as necessary, bail me out, give me tax exemptions. And unfortunately, it is the people who are already the richest who are going to be the most successful in this lobbying game. No wonder the wealth gap continues to grow. Remember that we have different drives and motivations, sort of a hero and a fiend in all of us. And a lot of how we act in society is going to come down to what the structure of our society incentivizes us to do. The central virtue of the free market is that it leverages our natural skin in the game. In a free market, we produce and trade with others to get what we need. If we cheat somebody, we'll most likely ruin our reputation. If we make a bad investment, we lose our money. If we don't provide economic value, no economic value comes to us. If I make a mistake, I pay for that mistake. That's the essence of skin in the game. What I do directly affects the quality of my life through time. I have the opportunity to reap the compound interest of years of good decisions, and I face the consequences if I make bad ones. Skin in the game tends to bring out the very best in people. When it's you and your family who are going to pay if you're dishonest, unproductive, and narrow-minded, when it's you and your family who stand to benefit greatly when you're productive, innovative, and hardworking, you're going to be most likely to show up and be a positive part of society. The introduction of government action reduces skin in the game in society. Though we may have good intentions when we expand the role of government in managing society, we are truly creating a monster. Here's what our representative democracy looks like, our democratic welfare state. First, you forcibly expropriate a large amount of the wealth through taxes, and you place it in the government treasury. Doing this through the debt-based Ponzi scheme is no different. In the end, we're taxed for it. We pay, inflation being the biggest tax of all. So you centralize all these resources. Then you have politicians decide what to do with all of these resources. So we're taking money away from the people who have the greatest incentive to use it carefully and wisely. No one will ever use your money more carefully and wisely than you will. And we're giving it to people who did not earn it. Politicians spend money they didn't earn. That's not skin in the game. And the more centralized it is, the worse it is. Federal programs are the worst because you have this small group of people in Washington, D.C. who's so disconnected from the source of where the wealth comes from and all that goes into it that they have no real accountability to anyone. It's the opposite of skin in the game. When they make mistakes, they don't pay. You pay. You already paid, and you'll pay again. This system basically makes politicians the gatekeepers of success and wealth. The more intrusive the government becomes, the more it manages society, the more politicians and bureaucrats pick all of the winners and losers in society. The political class is inundated with bribes and offers of wealth, status, influence, and security in exchange for political favors. About $5 billion is being shown as spent on lobbying in 2024. Of course, the real lobbying is more subtle, it's not a public figure, and it's much, much larger than that. There are some who believe that at this stage in the US, most politicians are completely bought and paid for by influential people and groups. Our system of coercion allows citizens to live without skin in the game. A quintessential example of living without skin in the game is the 2008 bailout of the banks and General Motors. They had privatized profits and socialized losses, meaning that when they did well, they got to keep all the profits, and when they failed, everyone else had to pay for their failure. Of course, we're always fed a story about how this is for our own good, but remember what I said about speeches and stories. Just look past all that's being said and look at what's happening. Some of the richest, most powerful people in society were allowed to transfer their mistakes, their losses, to everybody else, to all the common people. This could only be done through violence. No person would willingly pay for someone else's bad business decisions. I highly recommend my video on blanket coercion to see how this violence is being employed without very many people realizing it. At the end of the day, reality can't be cheated. Mistakes always have to be paid for. Wasted resources are wasted resources. And anytime you see someone making mistakes and not suffering the consequences, not paying for them, you can be certain that they're using human shields. Someone else is paying for their mistakes. And our system allows people, influential people, to leverage government coercion to transfer their mistakes to others. The more the government gets involved in society, the more we set the stage to incentivize the very worst in people. Government divides people and makes them suspicious of each other. An intrusive government invariably results in political battles full of self-righteousness. People get attached to their parties because they understand that when government is the most influential force in society, whoever controls it gets to make all the rules. Government incentivizes people to think less and obey more. Government offers power over others and the opportunity to practice vicarious philanthropy with other people's money. Government incentivizes people to be dependent instead of self reliant. Government opens the door to the possibility of living off the work of other people. Government systematically kills the heroism and goodwill inherent in voluntary choice by using violence to prioritize control and power. Again, it's all the same people. We're all the same big group of people. It's just the question of what kind of system do we have? What's our system going to incentivize us to do? So, a bit of a recap. We inflict big government on ourselves because we believe that people are bad. And we're right. People have a bad side. What we don't realize is that the more force we introduce, the worse side of people we bring out. We fear that the rich and powerful will prey on the poor and common people. We fail to understand that government is the ultimate tool of exploitation. It's the ultimate tool of greed. By increasing government, we ensure that this exploitation will happen. We guarantee it. Freedom brings out the best in people because it demands maximum skin in the game. The free market puts all people, rich and poor, at the same level in the sense that every person pays for their own mistakes. No one is coerced into dealing with anyone else. No one is forced at gunpoint into a losing arrangement. We're never going to live in a world where everyone is well-intentioned and competent. It'll never be that way. The dark side will always be there. There's no possible outcome where we live in this world without greed, exploitation, idiocy, corner cutting, lying, cheating, and stealing. We can, however, make those things the small exception rather than the rule. And that's what the free market does. Let me be totally clear here. I believe that government has a necessary and vital role to play to restrain violence in society, to maintain a police force for catching and punishing people who choose to commit acts of force and fraud, criminals, to maintain a military defense to defend against foreign invaders, to maintain law courts to settle contract disputes between people, though that function may be ceded to technology soon. When it performs these functions, the government provides a strong incentive for people not to use violence to pursue their goals, to not be criminals, because the consequences are steep. You can't fight the law and win. That's what sets the stage for a free market. I call this a negative role in society. A government acting within the boundaries of these functions does not initiate any action on its own. The only time government action takes place is in response to someone using violence. Someone commits a crime, a foreign invader attacks. Otherwise, the government is just a silent part of society. Asking government to go beyond these functions is when we get ourselves into trouble. The great social mistake is believing that we can use violence to achieve the good. The surest path to creating the optimal incentive structure in our society is by reducing violence to the absolute minimum. The more we limit government to its proper role of restraining violence, the more we will bring out the best in the most people.